The Weekly Show with David J. Maloney.
This week, David chats with legendary actress Charlotte Stewart.
And now, here's your host, David J. Maloney.
Welcome, everyone, to The Weekly Show. I'm your host, David J. Maloney. Tonight, we're joined again by a true Hollywood original. She's an actress and author known across the world for her role as Ms. Beadle from Little House on the Prairie, but her career stretches far beyond Walnut Grove. She's Mary X in David Lynch's cult classic Eraserhead, Betty Briggs in Twin Peaks, and she shared the screen with legends like Jimmy Stewart, Elvis Presley, Kevin Bacon, and Kyle MacLachlan. Her memoir, Little House in the Hollywood Hills, tells a wild, honest, and ultimately uplifting story of a woman who's lived it all and lived to tell it with humor and grace. Back again after the break to chat more about it all is actress Charlotte Stewart. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. You've experienced marriage, divorce, relocation, losses, health issues, addictions, and reinvention. What do you see now in hindsight as kind of the through line or lesson in some of those transitions, or maybe even go so far as to say, the lesson of your life?
Gosh, I know I made a lot of mistakes. I think the best thing that I did, when I married a man named David Banks, and he was sober. And we were married 26 years in sobriety. And so I was introduced to AA a long time ago. It is a very good organization. And I don't know if you'd call it that, but it's a good club to belong to. But when David passed, I went out and I drank for 10 years. And then I'm now married to a wonderful man. And he made me believe that I could be sober, and I am now. I'm sober, but it's thanks to being with good friends who believed in me. If you have a drinking problem, it's a problem. It's not a fun thing, and I'm so grateful that I have a way to stay sober now. I'm 84 years old. Remember, I don't know how much longer I'm going to be around here, but I promise you, I'll be sober.
Well, I mean, considering you were able to play a teen to 30 and you don't look anywhere near 84 now, I think your genetics are favoring you for more years.
I think so. Thank you.
So when things got dark, like in stages of addiction, crisis, heartbreak, was there a moment or moments or insight that helped you begin to climb out, or was it the in both cases the men in your life?
Not necessarily the men in my life, but I crashed hard, and I believed that my life was in danger. And I got support from my friends, and as I can tell you now, my husband, Michael, who I'm married to now, has been so supportive. I just thank God that those people were in my life. But I don't know what else to give it to. God blessed me with the right people in my life. And now I keep it up. I've made a commitment to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. I try to support other people who are trying to make that change in their life too, and make myself available. I try to go every day. In fact, this is the time of my meeting today. I'm committing to you.
Ooh. Well, I appreciate that in some ways, but I also respect the need to be there in others. In what ways would you say surviving trauma or hardship has perhaps informed some of the roles you later took, or how you might approach a character's interior life? Has that had any effect on it?
I don't think so. I just try to, when somebody hands me a script and marks the part and I read the part and I try to figure out, is this a troubled person? I know what that's like, so I can portray that. Is this a good person? I'm a good person. I can portray that. I try to identify it with parts of my life. I have a wonderful family. I'm the only one left anymore. But my family my family was so good. My father was an alcoholic. He died of alcoholism. And I will always miss him, because now that I know what I know about alcoholism, he could have been saved from, terrible tragedy. And I wish I had known. But no, I'm just so grateful to be alive and well. And I have made a promise to continue my sobriety at a day at a time. I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. So here I am today.
Well, your memoir is frank and honest, and I'd encourage everyone to get a copy if they want to know more about this era of Hollywood and, of course, your life. Did writing it change your relationship to your past at all, or did anything unexpected happen when you were writing it? Things that you realized that you hadn't realized before, or unexpected things happen when you released it to the world?
When I was first approached to write a memoir, I said, I can't write a memoir. I barely got out of high school. They said, no, don't write a memoir. Tell the truth. Tell the truth about your life. Because they gave me the impression they thought I had an amazing life. Well, now looking back on it, I guess I did. But, and I make a lot of mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. Do the best you can. It's good to have support of your family, your friends, those closest to you. And I do have that now. I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky with my life. I mean, I never thought, first, I didn't think I'd ever hit 80, let alone 84. But I take care of myself. I walk 1.5 miles every day, get out and, do my exercise. I sew every day. I'm at my sewing machine right now. This is what I'm making today. Can you see that?
Yes.
That's a front of a I call them Beetle bags, because Miss Beetle makes them, and they're with pictures of Little House on the Prairie on them, and that keeps me busy every day.
And I thought I read somewhere that is some of the proceeds go somewhere, right? To the local hospital for whatever they need for children. Whatever they want to use it for is what I do. Well, that's awesome.
I've always been supported.
You mentioned, okay, so you mentioned Twin Peaks earlier. I want to kind of get into that a little bit. Tell me about the night you first met David Lynch. What was your first impression?
My first impression, well, my roommate at the time, Doreen, was a volunteer at the American Film Institute. And she came home one day and she said, I'm working with a director and he's looking for an actress and she said, I told him my roommate's an actress, so I've invited him to dinner. So dinner, David Lynch shows up with his wife, and I'm sorry, I can't remember her name because it didn't last very long. He shows up for dinner and I open the door. There stands this guy and he's got on a tweed jacket, 2 neckties, both tied up to a knot in front, a Panama hat that's just beat to crap, holes in it. And that was my first impression of David Lynch. And it didn't really change much, because he that's what he wore the whole time we were shooting. I don't know if he changed clothes. I really don't know. He seemed very comfortable in what he was, wearing and doing, but he was so interesting. He always had a smile on his face. He was always laughing, and I never saw him get upset or, nervous or stressed. And it took us, over 1.5 years to do Eraserhead. I was there a long time. In fact, I started working I did the first episode what's all the family? Before Little House on the Prairie, the Waltons. I did the first episode of the Waltons, and I'd been working all night because David Lynch only worked after midnight. So I'd been working all night long on Eraserhead, showed up at 6 a.m. at Paramount to do the Waltons. Completely zonked out of my head, not with drugs or anything, just with the stress and tired. And I made so many mistakes. They were so sweet. But that's how I, got into the Waltons. That was a year before Little House on the Prairie. So
What was it like to receive and parse through the script for Eraserhead? Was there a moment you kind of went, this is strange, but I kind of want to be a part of it?
I would never have turned it down. First of all, I thought it was going to be about 6 weeks of work. That's the most I'd ever done. And I did a lot of student films, and they usually, they were over in 1 or 2 days and they never got released, But I thought, well, okay, well, I'll give him the time. I'll give him, 4 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. Year and a half later, we're still shooting. That's the way David did things,
On the first
Look
day,
what happened. Look what happened.
on the first day of filming Eraserhead, I believe I read somewhere that David applied like an ear infection, like makeup to you.
He did. Every day.
Did he ever explain precisely why he felt you or the character needed that?
I never asked him if that's what he needed to do, and it never showed. You never saw it. And the first scene we shot was the dinner scene where Henry comes to meet my parents. And that was the very first thing we shot. So I show up at the American Film Institute, and we were shooting in the garage apartment, which was normally the chauffeur's apartment, but they took it over and gave it to David to shoot the film. And the first was the dinner scene, and I did not understand what was going on. We didn't even start shooting till after midnight. And that became the habit. That's when he worked. So we'd work till 6 a.m, and we had to be out of there because he didn't want AFI to know he was shooting. They gave him the film. It was 35mm film. This wasn't 16mm blown up. It was 35mm film. And when they stopped giving him the film, his sister-in-law, Sissy Spacek, provided all the film for the rest of the shoot. And that took several years. And by that time, they had asked him to leave the Film Institute, and he just moved into the chauffeur's apartment, and they never knew he was there.
I was going to say, he's such a brilliant, unique mind and filmmaker that had so many idiosyncrasies. And I was going to ask you if there were any daily habits outside of the fashion issues and outside of the weird work schedule.
Smoking, constantly smoking. And unfortunately, it killed him. So he didn't last.
Yep. Anything to excess, right? So,
well, I never saw him drink. I don't think he ever drank. But he did smoke all the time. And even much later when we were doing Twin Peaks, and we did Twin Peaks, the movie later, he was still smoking. And they say that he quit 6 months before he died. But I don't remember ever seeing him without a cigarette.
Working with David Lynch, did you ever feel there was a spiritual or subconscious dimension to what he was doing? And if so, was it ever discussed? I mean, and how do you meet him in that space? How do you meet a guy like that in that space?
You don't. You just do what he tells you. I never questioned. Never once questioned. In Eraserhead, there's a scene where Mary's walking out on Henry, and she goes under the bed and she's pulling on this. He said before, just keep pulling on whatever it is until I tell you to go. So, if you'd say it, it's like 12 times I'm jerking on something. And then finally pull it out to the suitcase. I'm leaving. So I just did what he said. I didn't know why. And working with the baby, Spike, we called him. Baby Spike. Did you see? You remember Spike? Did you just freeze on me?
No, I was nodding. Affirmatively.
I thought it went.
Yeah, I was nodding affirmatively and smiling because I was appreciating where you were going with this.
So Spike was the baby, and he was so real. He was absolutely so real that I really believed in my character that this baby had to be taken care of, even though it had no arms or legs, or none that I could see, but it would eat everything. that I put in its mouth. I don't know where that went, but that wasn't my problem. That was not my problem. He was my baby, and that's all I had to care about. I didn't treat him like a prop. He was my baby.
I was going to ask you what kind of trust or vulnerability was required of you to function in the world of Eraserhead, but it seems like absolute.
Nothing. I just did what the director said.
Just trust.
And I encourage other students who work with student directors, just do what they say. That's how they're going to learn. That's how they're going to learn their mistakes too. When something doesn't work, they're going to learn that. But I wasn't going to question anything.
You got to work with Jack Nance. Do you have a favorite memory of working with him, or maybe other people on Eraserhead? Something small, human, which has stuck with you all these years.
Oh, Jack and I became roommates later on. When we were doing Twin Peaks, we weren't a couple at all. We were roommates. We shared a house. He needed a place to live. I had a house, and there was plenty of room. And so I literally lived with Jack Nance longer than the previous marriage I had been in. So, but we were good friends. And he was crazy. He was just a crazy guy, but look what he did. He made the most believable character in almost everything he did, not just Eraserhead, but Twin Peaks. And he did many other things. But, he was a very sad man. He was very sad. His marriage didn't work out. And that was very sad. And he ended up very much alone. But I have to say, the last time I saw him, actually, my husband at the time, David Banks, we went over to visit him. He lived in Pasadena, and we got to this apartment building. It was only a 2-story, but it was very small. Went down this long hallway, and he was the last door at the end. And we knocked on the door, and he opened it. And it was this little tiny, tiny room with a Murphy bed. If you know what a Murphy bed is, it
falls out of the wall.
Pulls out of the wall, pulls out of a closet. That was his apartment, was his Murphy bed. And that's where he died. In that little sad, little lonely Murphy bed. I think I heard he got into a fight with somebody in the parking lot, and they hit him. And
oh, he had brain swelling or brain bleed?
Yeah, I think that's what they realized.
Cerebral edema.
That's what he had. Yeah.
So
all very questionable.
When Twin Peaks comes along, you're still actually doing Eraserhead, right? Did they overlap at all?
No, they didn't. No.
Okay.
No, they were done.
So you finish Eraserhead, Twin Peaks comes along later.
A couple years later.
When you get the first inkling that you might be into another ride into David Lynch's world, you know what I mean? How did that casting come about? Did he already have you in mind for that role because of the experiences before?
Yeah, he called me up and he said, and I'll do it like David does it. Hey, Char, you want to go to work? He always yelled. That's how he spoke. Loud. I said, yeah. And he said, okay, I'll get you the script. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't read for it. He just had me play Betty Briggs.
Now, as this thing starts, were you ever given a full picture of the story, or were you learning the story along the way similar to the audience?
None of the actors got scripts. We got our parts. Never had a script. So I think later somebody gave me a script when the series was finished. But no, nobody had a script. We just showed up and got our words. He didn't read people. He never read people for a part. He liked what he saw. In fact, Harry, who played Deputy Andy, I just saw him last weekend. We had a little Twin Peaks reunion in Napa. They were showing us the movie. Mm-hmm. And so I saw that my friends from there for the first time in many years. And Harry met David when he was a taxi driver, drove him to the airport. And David was so impressed with him. And I don't even think he was an actor then. He just loved his character. And he was very much like Deputy Andy in Twin Peaks. Hired him to be the part of the deputy in a series. He went the whole length of the series, never having read for a part.
That's our show for tonight. Thank you so much for watching, and a special thanks to actress Charlotte Stewart for joining us. Charlotte will be back again next week for the next part of our interview, so please tune back in. Stay safe, everyone.